What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Comically Boston breakdown episode for The Penguin, episode 4, Cent'anni, which is a toast that means may you live for 100 years, but we'll get into that later when the title of the episode comes into play. But coming off of episode 3, Sofia had found out that Oz was working with the Maronis because the Maronis pulled up and put them at gunpoint. We never got to see that side of things because we only saw Vic's side of things, where he sees Oz in trouble and he pulls up, slams into the Maronis, and then him and Oz skirt away with the "we're in it now, Vic, we're in it now." And many people might not like this episode because it's not so penguin-centric. This is Sofia's flashback-heavy episode, and Oz is in there because he was her driver, right? So he's in the show, but this is not his episode, right? And some people might not like that, but as far as Sofia Falcone's story and CRISTON Millioti, this shit was gangster. But you gotta remember how, Oz switched up on her last week and how emotional that was and what's going through her head to start this episode.
You asked. That's my fucking answer. I got the club, a drops operation to run my own thing. Guy like me. Getting all that? That don't mean nothing to you maybe, but it does to me. Gotta fucking go now!
What about Sofia?
Fuck! Leave her!
And he switches up so fast. He's like, listen, and right after he says, like, that might not mean nothing to you, but it meant something to me. And he goes, you meant something to me, you still do, and then they're like, how can I trust you? Let me show you how. And then the Maronis pulled up, and then right after Vic shows up, he's like, fuck it, leave her, right? Because now she had witnessed some shit, but this is how this episode starts, and it's crazy. That's what I missed the most this week, is little one-liners that the Penguin says that were hilarious, but still, when it comes to an HBO show, I guess HBO thinks trauma sells. So we jump into this episode, a flashback-centric episode for Sofia, and it's titled Cent'anni, episode 4, with, I believe, 4 remaining? 5, 6, 7, 8? Yeah, so 4 remaining weeks of The Penguin. So far through 4, this show keeps getting better and better, and the acting gets so good, and the storytelling and the writing, oh, it's just so good. Like, this is a perfect HBO show alongside, like, Agatha each week. It's been a lot of fun, but let's get into it. We open on the title card, the Penguin in red, and it's on a puddle as we pull up in the reflection to see what is happening after Mrs. Maroney pulled up and pulled the guns on Sofia and Oz, and one of the guys hits Oz to get him down on his knees, and Sofia's down on her knees, and Mrs. Maroney there tells Sofia that Oz was the one that killed Alberto. So I don't know if Sofia's gonna be able to forgive him after this, right? Because she was working with him because she thought someone else killed her brother and that Oz was a good guy. But Oz is just a little rat trying to weasel his way into whatever he possibly can. But Oz is the man, right? He's the Penguin. So I don't know. I think it's going to come down to next week is going to be some crazy shit. But as soon as she, says to Sofia, oh, Oz was the one that killed your brother, she kind of starts hearing, seeing tunnel vision, and her ears start ringing and she can't hear anything anymore. And she's just watching Oz as his spit starts to come out and he just starts to flail and unravel and try to talk his way out of it like he does so well. And then as soon as this is happening, Victor comes in, crashes in, Sofia falls over, gets a bump on her head, starts bleeding from her head. Oz takes off, the Maronis take off, Sofia kind of crawls away to like this corner and she's like up against the wall, and she calls Dr. Julian Rush, the guy that is in this episode in the flashback, but also we saw in the last episode he was like hugging her, holding her, calming her down, and he was like, listen, I can help you, you're safe. And she goes, I couldn't be safe, I'm home. But as she calls Dr. Rush, she passes out on a stack of newspapers that read something like, Gangland rivalry spills into Gotham. We cut into a flashback, and Sofia is at the Isabella Falcone Foundation for her mother, and she's asked to speak and come up as a chairwoman of this foundation. And you see a younger Sofia, she's in red, she doesn't have the scars on her neck, she, looks totally sane. Like, she's just a nice young girl, poor Sofia. And you know this is a flashback because we just saw Oz drive away, so this clearly isn't right now. So Oz is her driver at the time, and he looks on. And she talks about how her mother took her own life when Sofia was 9. And then after the speech, Oz and her, you know, as her driver, and the little relationship they have is kind of funny and cute, and I kind of like them two together where they're like friends. And like the last episode, that was so good, their dynamics. And now, you know, after she finds out Alberto was killed by Oz, I don't know if she's going to be able to forgive Oz ever, so it's going to be her versus Oz. I don't know, I kind of liked them working together. They were good together. But Oz says to her, "You need a cigarette to take the edge off?" And she's like, "Listen, this is the 3rd luncheon of the week. A lobotomy couldn't take the edge off," which I believe a lobotomy is, you know, something to do with the brain. If you've seen The Boys season 4, you might know a little thing about a lobotomy or two. Sofia fucks with Oz a bit for being her driver, and then she says to him, "Listen, I know this job sucks. You deserve better, but if it makes you feel any better, you got a dick, so you're eligible for a promotion." And then a press woman comes up to her, starting asking questions about this woman that might have worked at the lounge and might have had a relationship with her father, and kind of wigs her out, and then she walks away. She gets in the car. Sofia kind of freaking out in the car, and she has a little flashback back to when she was 9, and we see that when Sofia was 9, she was the one that found her mother hanging in her room, and that just devastating for poor Sofia. So we cut back to the Falcone mansion, and we see that Mark Strong as a young Carmine Falcone, and he actually does quite a good job. He, you know, it kind of sounds like him, kind of looks like him. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was people that didn't even realize that he was 2 different people. But John Turturro, I mean, like, we all just love him as Agent Simmons from Transformers, but he's a phenomenal actor. And he was great as Carmine in the Batman, but scheduling conflicts, so that's why we get Mark Strong as a flashback, younger version of Carmine. And I kind of buy it with the glasses and more hair, less gray hair. And Carmine here is disappointed in Alberto, and, you know, thinks he's going to be embarrassing the family. And Sofia's like, "Don't worry, I'll handle him." And Carmine pours her a drink and goes, "You know, he's not like me or you. He's soft." And Carmine says he wants Sofia to take over the family after him. And this is a big moment for Sofia, but she can't help to start, you know, thinking about what she was thinking about earlier with her finding her mother when she was 9. And she starts to pry a little bit of what happened to her mother. And now it becomes a little bit more clear, like, hey, this hanging woman might not have killed herself. She might have been strangled to death, and then just made it look like she was hung herself. And, you know, but like strangling to death, isn't that the same way that Selena Kyle's mother died? Also, you know, had a relationship with Falcone. Falcone strangled her to death. Like, ooh. I loved this scene with Sofia and Mark Strong, though, and how she's trying to pry at, like, you know, what happened to my mother?
Thinking a lot about Mom.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember her being sick or depressed.
She was good at hiding it. Look, I miss her too, baby, every day.
Did she ever see anyone? Like a therapist or a psychiatrist?
Your mother was a proud woman, stubborn. She refused my help as much as I tried. And God knows I tried.
Of course, yeah.
Sofia. Why would you do this now? Picking away at old wounds. You know how it upsets me.
So she's like picking at old wounds here, and, you know, bringing up stuff right after he had just been like thinking, oh, you could be the next person in charge, and just, wrong moment to say this, honey, because now he's doubting whether or not he just said the right thing to you. Come on. Poor Sofia, right, lost her mother, Isabella Falcone, probably to the hands of her father. And poor Selena lost Maria Kyle to the hands of Falcone. And they're both kind of what? Stepsisters, half-sisters? And Sofia and Selena Kyle's still out there too. So I mean, I would love to see Selena Kyle and Sofia Falcone, half-sisters, kind of doing the damn thing together. That would be awesome. So after this conversation, we see Alberto getting dropped off at the Iceberg Lounge, and Sofia trying to talk to him, and he spills a drink, and he goes, the Penguin's gonna have to clean this up, and we see her defend him and go, don't call him that, the same kind of way last episode that Vitti called Sofia a psycho, and Oz was like, I don't think she appreciates that very much, and she's like, no, I don't, you know, like, they both kind of have each other's back, you know, they're both kind of misfits that, you know, understand each other a bit. Sofia asks Alberto about her dad and what he's like at work, and does he have relationships with the other women, like that reporter starting to, you know, get into her head a bit and make her start asking questions. And he kind of teases he knows something, probably about Selena's mother, but he won't say, and he's like, Father would kill me if I said anything, don't worry about it. And Alberto's like, whatever you're thinking, don't. What Dad does at work, he does at work. I mean, we have a good life, right? Like, clearly just, you know, brushing past that his father might be doing some fucked up shit, and he's seeing it at work. And she's like, you see a different side of him than I do. But then Sofia goes and talks to that reporter that spooked her earlier. And this woman has evidence of a Yolanda Jones that was hanged, and the evidence seems to point more towards that she was strangled by hands rather than strangled by the rope of a, you know, hanging herself. And, you know, so immediately I'm like, Carmine strangled Selena's mom in the comics, right? And she scratched her face, his face. And then in the movie, he strangled Selena and she scratched his face, right? So he's got the same type of scar marks from the same Kyle women. And then we also know that Carmine strangled the Russian friend, Selena's friend from the Batman movie. And we heard that from the voicemail that she left Selena, and the Batman hears, and you hear, and the only reason I really remember that scene is because Gordon goes, Jesus, he's strangling her, right? And you hear Jeffrey Wright's just perfect voice. Such a good Gordon. I hope he comes back in this series. So Carmine, in my mind, is strangling these women and then hanging them to make it look like it's suicide rather than a murder. So if this is really the, you know, these women haven't been committing suicide and they've really been getting murdered by Carmine particularly, why would he then frame Sofia as the hangman when clearly Carmine's the hangman and Sofia was innocent? But we also see that the remainder of that flashback when Sofia saw her mother. Carmine ran in and was like, no, no, don't look away. And she tries to look at his eyes behind the glasses, and she pulls him down, and he kind of like, oh, don't look at my eyes. Like, for some, I don't know why, you know, it was a quick shot, but I was like, man, why did he, like, not want her to see his eyes behind those glasses? Then I thought about it in the Batman movie. I was like, I don't know if we ever saw his eyes behind those tinted glasses, which are kind of dope. The red, like, pinkish tint, I kind of dig those. But the reporter, right, so Sofia's kind of flashing into that flashback while the reporter's telling her this information. And the reporter says, we have to protect these women, Sofia. And she says her family would destroy her if she tries to publish this bogus evidence. She has no just conspiracy theories. There's no actual proof. So she tells the reporter off and gets in the car, and Oz goes, hey, your father might not like to know that you were talking to a reporter. And she talks down to him and goes, shut up and drive. You're my driver, nothing else. I don't need your advice, right? Which is another mistake. You don't talk down to Oz. It's a bad idea, I promise. And then at a family party, which I believe was Carmine's birthday party, Sofia and Carla talk to each other and they're giggling to each other. And then Oz walks up and she's like, Oz, what are you doing inside? Is that a new jacket? It looks good. And he's like, thank you. But Oz goes, your father wants to see you in his office. And Oz definitely snitched to Sofia, was taught that he was talking to the reporter, and probably got that promotion to Carmine's right-hand man like he always wanted. And then, of course, the next scene, that's what I wrote down in the notes, and of course, the next scene, I was like, yep, Carmine feels betrayed that she talked to the reporter and didn't tell him. And she's like, what, you heard this from Oz? He doesn't know what he's talking about. He starts talking to her like, you would talk to a reporter and didn't talk to me? What the hell? And she's like, I know there's an explanation. And he's like, huh? I know there's an explanation for why you had scratches on your hands the night Mom died, right? And then if you really look at that clip closer, when he's like hugging her and going, Sofia, don't look, he kind of does have scratches on his hands. And if the woman killed herself and wasn't fighting back and hung herself when he wasn't around, why would he have scratches on his hands like there was a struggle? I don't know, man. Carmine's a bad fucking dude. Clearly, just likes to kill women? I don't know, man. That's just, what's the deal? I mean, and he killed 7 women the same way, strangled them, and then hung them like it didn't happen? What? But Carmine doesn't like that she brings up this point about the cut hands, and he's clearly like, oh fuck, she knows, she's connecting the dots a little bit more than I would like. And he says, you're clearly not yourself right now. You're confused, sick. Oz will drive you home now, and sends her home at a party, you know what I mean? Like, it hasn't even really started yet, and he's sending her home. So Oz is driving her home, and he's like, I was just looking out for you, and she goes, well, you got what you wanted now. Now Carmine sees you. And then the cops pull up, and it's Kenzie, the corrupt cop from the movie that we know was working for Falcone. And Kenzie arrests Sofia for the murder of the reporter. And immediately he says this, and she goes, did you do this? And she's saying it to Oz. Did you do this for him, Oz? And so clearly Oz killed that reporter and framed fucking Sofia. This is what he was talking about last episode. I don't regret what I got. You know, I got the club. I got the drops business for a guy like me. You know, like, but he freaking sent Sofia to this hell. Poor Sofia, man. Now you get to see the repercussions of what Oz's actions were. But Oz just left sitting there, you know, and he was trying to like pretend to, hey, let her go, you know, but he lets her take her. And this was clearly Carmine's plan. He, you know, hey, Oz is driving her home. Pull him over and arrest Sofia for the murders. And, you know, so he's framing her for the killers, all the killings. And then gets to the jail, and now there's reports. Sofia Falcone, the hangman arrested. Strings up 7 women, and the story behind the hangman, right? It's all over the place. And her, like, lawyer is going, hey, your father is saying you're crazy, and you should go to Arkham. And it's only going to be for 6 months. And she's like, he's punishing me. And Alberto's like, it's only 6 months. And clearly, you know, Falcone killed and strangled these women to death, her mother, and he's framing her for it. Like, what? Come on, man. What a bad father. But he sends her to Arkham, where she's going to be like, you know, certifiably insane, instead of like sending her to Blackgate, I'm guessing, where like the Maronis are. So maybe this is strategic by him. He's like, listen, she knows too much. We need her to think she's, you know, we need her to change her mind a bit, and but we can't let her get killed by the enemies, the Maronis, right? So he had to send her to solitary confinement, where she'd at least be safe physically, but mentally she's gonna be destroyed. And we see this terrible scene where Sofia gets dragged off to Arkham, strip searched aggressively, right? Like they're cleaning her, and then they're like, put her up in the stirrups like a pregnancy thing, shove a thing up her to make sure she's not keeping anything up there, you know what I mean? Poor Sofia, right? Like literally strip searched right from a party, and then, you know, thrown into this new outfit, like, oh, thrown into the prison gown, thrown into a cell. And then we meet her Dr. Ventress and his associate, Julian Rush, which we thought Dr. Rush was the doctor. So now there's another doctor, and we just find out that Julian Rush was working under him. And we find out that Sofia is now going to be put into isolation with no visitors. And as she's walking to her isolation, she sees another patient with dark circles around his eyes. Maybe that's one of those weird painted face gang members that we saw at the beginning of the Batman. That was my only thoughts with that guy. But I was like, he doesn't look familiar. But then, you know, we're seeing Arkham cells. So I'm like, man, are we walking by the Riddler and the Joker? Like, are we going to see them in this period of time? But this is 10 years, right? So she's in Arkham for 10 years for something she didn't do, right? Like, poor Sofia, man. Really starting to make us feel for this woman, and like, oof. And she gets locked in her cell, and the only thing you hear from the Arkham is shouting and moaning and people in pain. And Sofia meets her next door neighbor, which is named Magpie, not Margaret, saying that her stepmom, you should call her Margaret. And I'm thinking Magpie, you know, does look a lot like Harley Quinn and sound a lot like Harley Quinn, but a more annoying, lesser version. And I think in the comics, Magpie is a weird version of Harley Quinn. But either way, Magpie, her roommate, was that person we heard last episode going, hangman, hangman, and giggling. And she goes to lunch, and Magpie saved her a seat. And there's a girl that's not chained, and she attacks Sofia for killing girls and kicking her and beating her to death, and like, not to death, but, you know, really fucking up her organs on the inside, kicking her to the body. And then Julian, Dr. Rush, comes in to talk to Sofia, and he's like, listen, you were angry and about your mother's death, so you killed those women. And she's like, I didn't do that. And she goes, I don't know how to convince you I'm sane when you've already made up your mind about me. And then they unchain Sofia with a fork, and that bitch that was attacked her before that wasn't chained is now chained, and they like let her just out in the room, and they're like, what, you want me to kill her? And she like won't do it. She's like still innocent, and that woman grabs her, and the fork falls, and she grabs the fork, and then she goes, end it, end it. And she like almost wanted Sofia to kill her, just probably to get her end this torture that she's been experiencing in Arkham. But that lady stabs herself in the throat to death. Oh. So now here's another one that they're going to be like, even though everyone in that room just witnessed Sofia not kill her, the woman killed herself with a fork. Now this is another one that they're going to be like, oh, Sofia killed another woman in jail. Like, come on, really? And then we see Dr. Ventress and Julian torture her, electric shock torture her, and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And she's starting to have nightmares of her mom hanging, and then as soon as she goes to touch the body, it moves. That shit jump scared me real quick. And then she snaps awake, grabbing at her throat. So this is the same nightmare she's having every time we see her grabbing at her throat, and that's why she has like she's like grabbing at the rope that was hanging her mother, you know, and she feels like it's hanging her, and she's like clawing to get rid of it. Oh, poor girl. She didn't have all this trauma before she showed up to Arkham for something she didn't do, you know? But Sofia gets a visitor, and it's Alberto, and he comes to tell her that she's not going to go to trial, and that Dr. Ventress sent a report that she's not fit to stand trial, which isn't true. And Rush comes to her and goes, I didn't know he was going to send that report. I wouldn't have let him do that. And Sofia gets paranoid about Magpie at lunch, and then snaps and starts slamming her head off a table and kills her. And then she's like stands up after she had just killed Magpie and goes, I'm fucking innocent. Until now. And they put Sofia to sleep. Oh, but as she's meeting Alberto there, he's like, I know this is fucked, but you just gotta keep fighting. And her face is so strung out, and she looks so defeated. But her face when she's killing, and she finally becomes a killer, and she gets the blood all over her face, like we've been waiting for weeks, like now she's fully strung out, and they've made her the hangman. You know what I mean? Like she wasn't the hangman, and now she technically didn't hang somebody, but now she's a killer, right? Like now she's physically a bad person, right? And she was innocent before this, before she walked into this place, and they tortured her into the point where now she's, I'm telling you, you shouldn't fuck with Sofia. It's a bad idea. But they put her to sleep, and now she wakes up at present day, right? And we're back at Julian's house, and she's picking him up from, he brought her back to her house from when he got the call from her at the beginning of the episode after Vic came in and crashed in. And Julian's at his house, and he's cooking her breakfast, and Sofia questions Julian about liking the Arkham and the power he had, and watching someone unravel, and how he looked at her, so curious. I was like, ooh, I loved the little scene between the two of them. And she really does look like a strung out killer when she's talking to Julian. And then Julian goes, I was the one that helped you get out of Arkham with your brother Alberto. So that's how she gets out after 10 years, and she's been in Arkham for 10 years getting lied to by men, is what she says. So now you're like, holy shit, so that was supposed to be 6 months, turned into a decade? This poor woman we don't know what happened the remaining 9 years, 6 months, right? Like, but Sofia goes, I've been in Arkham for 10 years getting lied to by men. She goes, you're right though, I do deserve a fresh start. And I love the little, he turns around and, hey. She just turns around like, oh, like in her hair there, and she's just like, you're right, I do deserve a fresh start. So Sofia goes to a family dinner in a yellow dress, and ooh, she looks so good in the yellow dress. The costume, all the outfits that Sofia wears, every single one of them has been just a banger after a banger, except for like the prison Arkham schmucks, you know, like that's just a prison outfit. But every one of her like classy outfits throughout the episodes have all been so sexy. CRISTON Millioti, wearing the hell out of those. Shadow costume department too. But it goes so quiet when she walks in, and she makes so much noise with her heels and pulling the chair and sitting down, makes so much noise. Beatty's like, are you serious? What are you doing here? And she's like, hey, I'm just here to support Luca just like you are. And then Luca stands up to give a speech. He starts talking, and Sofia's eating a meatball and starts making funny faces at Gia. I got a clip here of the funny faces. So So she makes a funny face and Gia laughs, and then Carla goes, Gia, stop. And then Luca keeps talking and you see her roll her eyes and you're like, oh my god, Sofia's so funny. But she's really had it up to here with the Falcones at the moment. But in the middle of Luca, the new boss of the family, talking, she smashes her glass for a toast the same way he did to interrupt him and goes, oh, I wanted to give a speech, you don't mind, right? And she says, the last time we were all together was 10 years ago at my father's birthday. I believe you all remember that night. That night was, well, I remember it, and that was the night that she was falsely arrested for killing 7 women that her father did, you know, like, ooh. And then she says all of her victims' names, all 7 names, and goes, it's important to say their names. The victims' names are so quickly forgotten, and their stories are so rarely told. And she goes, I was shocked how many of you wrote letters to the judge saying I was crazy, and how I trusted all of you and loved you, and none of you tried to help her except for her brother. And out of all of them, she was innocent. Like, Jesus Christ, even Milos has a higher body count than she does, right? And this is a funny-ass line, but I have the whole scene and the whole speech she gives, and it's honestly phenomenal acting in the choices here. I don't know how much of it we'll get in, but here's the clip of the speech.
I was genuinely surprised at how many of you wrote letters telling the judge that I was mentally ill, like my mother. Not that the judge needed much convincing. My father saw to that. I trusted you. I loved you. And yet not one of you tried to help me, except for my brother. The real thorn in my side is that unlike everyone here, I was innocent. I mean, Jesus Christ, Milos has a higher body count than I do.
Sofia!
I don't fit into this family anymore. So tomorrow I am starting a new life. For the first time, I have hope.
Ooh, so she goes, I am no longer a part of this family, and tomorrow I start a new life, because for the first time I have hope. And then she toasts
To new beginnings. Cent'anni.
And she toasts to new beginnings. Cent'anni, which means may you live 100 years, and is also the title of this episode. So, title of this episode, you may live 100 years, or maybe just they got that from that toast and that, diabolical little monologue she has at the end there. Oh, man, she's so good. And then she goes and smokes a cig up in a room, and she flicks it out the window and leaves the window slightly cracked. I wonder where that is. And then she takes Gia, the little girl there, Carla's daughter, and takes her out to the greenhouse with cake, and it will be their little secret. Let's not tell your mother. And Gia goes, my mom told me not to talk to you because you did bad things. And Sofia's like, I did. And Sofia says to her, I was locked in a dungeon with scary monsters and had to fight my way out. And they go and sleep in the greenhouse, and she goes, me and my brother used to sneak out here and sleep out here and pretend that we were out in a jungle. Should we do that? And then in the morning, so Gia goes to wake up and she goes, you stay here, I'll be right back. And we see Sofia walk into the manor, and we're all like, why are they out in the greenhouse and not in the building? And this is because Sofia walks back into the house with a gas mask on, and she had cut the gas leak on into the house, or carbon monoxide or something, and the entire family gets wiped out by gas from Sofia. And this is a beautiful shot where she's just like in this gas mask, and she's just cracking windows to air out the place now, and just it's got music over it, so I'll have to commentate as she's walking through. So Long My Love by Sarah Vaughan plays over the top as we see Sofia walking around with gas mask, as there's body laying throughout the building as she opens the windows, and we see her uncap the gas leak and put the cover back on the gas or whatever it is. And right at the end there, she does a little skip and she walks into the house, and then she starts walking through the corridors, and we see, I believe that's Milos's body there dead with the glass on the ground, and another guy in that room dead. And then she opens this door, and I'm wondering, is this Carla? Who's this woman here with this other guy laying next to her dead? Is that Carla? I'm guessing. And then she goes to the next room. I believe this is Tina and Luca's room. And Tina we know as the whore who was fucking Vidi on the side. And fucking the boss. And I love it. She's just like opening all the windows and just airing out the place, you know. And I believe that's Tina on the ground dead right there as the song continues to go on. And we see, I believe this is Luca's body there, dead on the side of the bed. And she skips in the mirror like she's dancing through, like she's like, yep, yep. You know, so she's definitely crazy now. If she didn't have a body count higher than Milos before, I think she does now. Wiped out the entire family. She walks up to the side of the table, takes his gun, walks up to the mirror, takes off the mask because now the house is aired out enough, and this is the room that had the window open, and we see her look at herself in the mirror, hold the gun, adjust the hair. That's where the clip ends. But right after this, she looks at Vidi with the gun. She like taps the edge of the bed and goes, "Put your pants on, Johnny. We need to talk." So the only people alive in the Falcone family, I believe now, are Sofia, Gia, the little girl, and Vidi. And she left Vidi alive strategically, but I don't know why she would leave him alive. And if he would actually go with them, if Luca's dead and his woman that he was fucking, Tina, is dead. But she's clearly about to expose or tell him everything that just happened because she strategically left his window open and kept him alive for some reason. Probably because she needs another guy with her if they're going to go up against Oz, right? And she needs somebody underneath her. So now she's the boss of the family and he's the underboss type of thing. But it's just them two left. But as soon as she says, "Johnny, we need to talk," the credits roll. And the credits roll with the song "Strange Little Girl" by the Stranglers. Which, I'm like, listen, this is too soon. I don't know if the song's any good. But just the title of it is "The Strange Little Girl," Sofia Falcone, and by the Stranglers. And she's a strange little girl, and the Stranglers her father, right? It just fits too perfectly. But yeah, I think her body count is definitely higher than Milos now, killing all the Falcones, all their handlers, all their security guards. All of them seem to be dead in the mansion, except for Gia, Vidi, and Sofia. And this catches us up in a beautiful way where it's a heavy Sofia episode with a flashback and showing us what happened for what we didn't see last episode. We don't get to see where Vic and Oz are going, but I think that's where the next episode, episode 5, will immediately jump into. Will be the end of that episode 3 from Oz's perspective. But now we know not only what happened to Sofia in Arkham for those 10 years, maybe not the whole 10 years, but we understand what happened in Arkham to her and how she was innocent before and has come out now a killer and clearly was fed up with all of her family, murdered all the Falcones, not by hand, but in a smart enough way where she gas leaked the whole place and they were not smart enough to get out of there and realize that there was gas leak. I don't know how you would be able to walk around there and not be like, "Oh, it's gas. We should get out of here," or at least find that leak, you know, like something. So the trailer for next week is Oz saying to Vic, "Sofia will be coming for us. It's me and you, Vic. We gotta take back what's Oz." So now it's gonna be Vidi and Sofia versus Oz and Vic into next week. But now Oz doesn't need to worry about the Falcones breathing down his neck. He just needs to worry about Sofia, really. And I think maybe they'll be able to patch this up a little bit. You know, let bygones be bygones. He did fuck her over. He did kill her brother. I don't know if she's gonna be able to forget that. But, you know, it's such a good show. And now Vic's back with him, so Vic's gonna get caught in all the drama. And in the post-credit scene, when you get to hear them talk about more about the episode, CRISTON Millioti describes Sofia as a shark, doesn't stop, because if he does, he'll sink and die. And she doesn't stop moving is her relentless pursuit for justice, right? So I don't know, man. Sofia's out to become the head of the Falcone family. Maybe she can be the head of the Falcones, run her thing, and Oz will kill off the Maronis, and then the Maroni business will be his, and maybe it will be Oz over here and Sofia over here for Batman 2. But I have a feeling we got 4 episodes left. I have a feeling it's going to be wipe out the Maronis the next week, maybe even wipe out the rest of the mob families. They got the 2 biggest ones, but then I think there's an Irish mob. We know the triads, the Chinese people. But if you wipe out everyone, then there's another power vacuum, and that needs to be filled. So I think he's going to leave them alive, but there's going to be either Sofia's the top boss at the end of this, or Oz is the top boss. And frankly, the show is called The Penguin, so I think Oz needs to be the top boss by the end of this, and that's where we're heading. And he's going to end, you know, sitting on top, sitting on his throne, you know what I mean? And then that will lead us into the Batman 2. But comment below your theories and thoughts. What do you think of this episode? What did you think for poor Sofia? This poor girl's been just getting the worst of it. What did you think about not having Oz and Vic in this and seeing that perspective? I think it's okay. I think as far as a flashback episode, it was still done really well in how it's smart enough to not like specifically tell us that it's a flashback. We're supposed to be just smart enough to be like, okay, this is a flashback, and then the moment she wakes up, you're supposed to be smart enough to be like, oh, that's from before, now we're in present day again. Cool. You know, like, it gave us everything you wanted to know about her, you know, gave us that whole dialogue, like everything you needed to know. It gave us, got it done in one episode, and tied it directly into the next episode with another cliffhanger, phenomenal ending with her wiping out her entire family and skipping through the house in the yellow dress to that beautiful song. Amazing. Amazing episode. I loved it. I love this show so much. It's been so good. I really comment below what your thoughts and what you're thinking if you're excited for episode 5. If you watch these episodes and you've made it this far, I highly recommend, if you would like to support me further, smash that like button, subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss future videos. My name is Big Cam. Thank you guys so much. If you'd like to follow me on my other social medias and talk about the Penguin or Agatha all along, my links for all those will be down in the description below. Big Cam, 2 G's in the Big, pretty much anywhere. And that's another episode breakdown for the Penguin. I will see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace.